Welcome, wargamers, to the titillating battlefields full of hedonism in the mortal realms, because today we are talking about Dawnbringer's Book 5, Shadow of the Crone, and this is video 3 of its coverage. Now, in the last videos in this particular series, Shadow of the Crone, we've been talking about things going on in Hammerhal Akshi. Or rather, Akshi in general. The first video is about Hammerhal, the second video is about the Crusade over there. But in this video, and its next one, we're going to pivot our point of view and go over to the Ghyran side of the Crusade. And this side is a little bit different in that we don't have an idea of what's going on at Hammerhal Ghyran right now. It just stays with the Crusade, but that being said, it is my favorite part of the book. The Ghyran side generally is. And the story picks right up after we exit the mountain region where we met Usharan, the Mortarch of Delusion, which was basically their entire plotline in the last book. They are in the section of Ghyran known as the Neck, coming out of the more confined regions of it. And our story picks up on the other side of that mountain range, where essentially the rest of the Crusade seem to have make it through, but not unscathed. And that's something that's hit up real fast and plays into just about everything going on with the Ghyran side of this book. People are not okay after having interacted with the Flesh Eater courts, and we'll get into why as our story unravels. One thing I'd like to add up top here though, if you're interested in these videos, you like the channel, and you're looking for any hobby supplies or Warhammer stuff, please consider using one of the links in my affiliate code down below, my link tree. There you'll see all the different stores I partner with, how much money you'll save, and every time you use those links, big or small, it throws a tip in my tip jar at no cost to you that goes directly to supporting me, my wife, our cats, the channel, the whole thing, and I'm just so thankful for each of you who does. Generosity like that is what keeps my videos ad-free because, quite frankly, Google's a little bit crazy when it comes to the amount of ads in YouTube videos. I'd also like to say, if you're looking to get information about the new edition of Age of Sigmar, I would keep an eye on Goonhammer, as they are definitely going to have a ton of resources for new and returning players to get you jump-started in the new edition. So as I said before, the Crusade manages to kind of reconnect after they had to break up to get to the other side of Usharan's home, but folks aren't doing well. Nearly everyone in this section of the Crusade is suffering from nightmares. Some men don't sleep and only murmur to themselves in the corners. They're pursued endlessly by ghouls, because even though they were allowed to leave, if you remember the great scene with Gormain, who was like, this was not your fault, you were just pawns, but go ahead and go through, right? They were allowed to leave, but that doesn't mean that we can't kind of drive you crazy, and anyone who wants to stay can, which is a very different proposition than go forth and be unharmed. So the Crusade is just kind of dealing with a lot of after effects, at least psychological effects, of going through the region. And now, let's talk about Thorion. This is the marshal of the entire Crusade, the boss in charge. She is going through a bit of a Pokemon evolution of her own. Over this campaign series, she has tapped more and more into latent magic that she has within herself, unexpectedly, the deeper into Ghyran that they seem to get. The further they go, the more evident this magic becomes. From bursts of life magic to healing injuries, she's changing. One of her hands even is said to be stuck kind of like in a twisted gnarl. Her skin is becoming tougher and cracked like its bark. And an hour or so in sunlight can restore her more than a night's sleep. Meaning, as we talked about before, the Dame of Leaves is becoming an icon of the Crusade, just as much as its military leader. What this means for her in the long run, no idea, but I'm excited to learn. With her Crusade kind of reconstituting itself, the Marshal's next goal is in sight. It's a small fort known as Nathweight's Crossing. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. It's a small defended township that was built on a region known as the Vorel Dam. In short, there's a big river. It's called the Vorel River. The first Crusades to reach this area before had settled in this place to build and defend a bridge, thinking more Crusades would come and basically like, oh, we'll hold the door open for you. They man the bridge to make sure nothing comes across except for cities of Sigmar, and they act as a resupply station when the Crusade reaches them. Despite that, very few Crusades have ever come to Nathweight's Crossing, this little town that they built. Now, you and I, as kind of with the omniscient narrator voice here, we know it's because the Ossiarch Bone Reapers and the Flesh Eater Courts basically cordoned off the entire area. They thought they were going ahead first and other crusades would be right behind them, but they never came. They essentially didn't know that they were cut off from Hammerhall. Now that's kind of fallen apart with the crusade punching through the Ossiarch Bone Reaper lines and, basically unfettering Usharin from Neferata. There's a lot of changes happening, so it's a bit unsure of what's going on next, but the scouts return and say, hey, thumbs up. It's safe, it's secure, they're ready to aid the Dawnbringer Crusade, and this provides our heroes with a brief bit to re-equip, rearm, and resupply. So the Ghyran Crusade parks itself at Nathwait's crossing and gets some much needed rest. But Thorion wants to kind of keep things moving, basically saying, we're really close to our goal, guys. I don't want to lose the momentum of our crusade because this place is already colonized. They don't need us. Let's keep going. And this is important because at this point where everybody else but the military arm is resting, at some point during the wilderness of Ghyran, the marshal had ordered that no one drink water from the natural sources, only drink it from our founts of Aqua Ghyranis, because in the Flesh Eater Courts Mountains, she had suspected that there was something wrong with the water. The people who drank it just kind of went nuts. Well, once they got to town, everyone can refill with fresh water that's not dependent on the Aqualith distribution. So like her crusade really needs to hydrate, restore stocks, and now they have access to fresh water they didn't for a while. While they are all doing that, Thorion and the leaders of Nathwait's Crossing go over like updated maps and information. Since these guys have colonized this dam, they've scouted the area and they have updated information that they can give Thorion. Based on the kind of logistics that we talked about in yesterday's video with the Crusade of Fire of like, how far can we reasonably push people? What means of transportation do we still have? What's available to us? Basically, after going through all of that, Thorion lands on the place that she wants to found her next crusade, or basically found the city. It's nestled in a cove of turquoise kind of mountain rock, replete with natural resources and natural defenses, and there's even a realm gate there. So we're like right at the precipice of being done. Like it's like the last stretch. It's not even that far from here, but it's, everything that they need to be able to start building this next big city. So since her civilian portion of the crusade is still hydrating or equipping, all that kind of stuff, Thorion takes her military elements forward. Basically, the idea is we're going to scout this place out. I'm kind of unclear of how far ahead it is, but I assume it's some distance. It seems like it takes 2 to 3 days to ride there. And the idea is she's going to clear it all out with her army so that the rest of the crusade, once they're ready to go, can walk right in and set up, which is a great idea. When they arrive at the scene, they are confronted with a site called, I believe it's pronounced Gilnarad's Gate. It is a realm gate that sounds really cool. It is imagine a massive flower that is, and you walk into the center of it, it kind of wisps you away. It sounds real pretty, but this is functionally a realm gate. Things that go in and out of this flower are taken presumably to some other place in Ghyran. It's not really specified too harshly as to where it goes. But unfortunately, there's some people hanging around this realm gate, and it's actively being corrupted by a host of Hedonites of Slaanesh, led by Lord Zythistikos, is how I'm gonna pronounce it, and we gain a fun bit of backstory about these guys. The Slaanesh army, that is. And this is as the fight is going on between Thorion and them. They are a Slaanesh warband that is directly in service of Glutos Orcillion, the Grand Gourmand of They Who Thirsts. You can see my dedicated video on him, but he is a dude who loves to sample the rare and exotic things of the realms. He likes to eat everything, eat and drink everything, always wanting the next level of experience or thrill that comes with trying something new. And this guy, Orcillion, has heard about a vintage of wine that, wouldn't you know it, is the rarest and best wine that there is. It's called King's Blood. And so Glutos alerts all of his warlords, anyone under him, Chaos warbands alike. Okay, specifically Slaanesh ones would be more interested, but anyone who can bring me King's Blood is gonna get a fat reward. And Lord Zythistikos is here to take him up on that offer. And more so than being interrupted, Lord Z, I'm going to call him Z because it's just a lot to kind of chew through that name. he smells a familiar aroma. Whatever sample of King's blood, maybe he had an empty bottle that Glutos had, he basically like kind of put in front of his warlord, sort of like letting a bloodhound sniff a sample of something and then lead you to it. Their sensations, their senses are so acute that they can like tell something is nearby. He knows the smell of King's blood. They came here to find it, and now he smells it in the air, and he's looking around, and all he sees are a bunch of humans running at him. Whatever that small sample of King's blood that Glutos had, these guys reek of it. So he's intrigued. This is the Slaanesh warlord, after all. Because it's this idea of like, well, what I came for came to me. And so a fight ensues between cities of Sigmar and the Hedonites of Slaanesh, and it's actually a pretty cool one because I don't feel like we get enough narrative depictions of what it's like to be attacked by the Hedonites of Slaanesh. For example, this fight is actually really fun to read. There's like a rolling pink and purple fog that descends across the battlefield. It disorients fighters, and then the Hedonites race into the center with their lines, and basically instead of confronting them toe-to-toe and fighting in the fog, they use it to kind of weave around and stab in the back and fire from range. Our Lord Z here goes and basically raids the supply wagons. Instead of the fight, he just goes way off to the side, grabs a bunch of canisters of their water, and is like, "Ha ha, got what I came for," and busts out of there. The kind of idea we get from our omniscient narrative perspective is the Hedonites had no chance of winning this fight. They're just more of a scouting crew than anything else. But they got what they came for, which is all that matters, and so Lord Z ducks out. Now, a lesser person would see this as a Chaos Warlord running, but Lord Z sees it as bravely delegating the responsibility of rearguard action to his men, which you could honestly do no less for the Lord Glutos himself, if we're being honest. And with this seemingly minor victory, or at least an easy one, relative to everything that's happened, Thorion has finally arrived at the site of her new city. But of course, that's not the end of this story, friends, because we have two things we need to discuss: a clue and a sidebar. The clue was that Glutos' boys are here for King's blood, and they smell it all over these Dawners. He steals their water. He gets it. He's letting them know that something's wrong, and it's about what you're drinking. The second thing to mention here is a cutscene. Usharan, the Mortarch of Delusion, is in a recess atop the River Vorel, and he opens his wound, basically like that where he got shot in the leg from the last book, opens that wound into a Ghyran spring, and downstream from it, animals that drink the water of the river go mad. They start attacking one another. Some of them just die. We get the idea that he is poisoning the entire Vorel River. Now, let's talk about why is this cool. I chose this as a point break for our story for a very specific reason, because the next series of events happen real rapid fire, and they are so cool, but they're very distinct from the Hedonites battle that happened just now. I like this because, quite frankly, this crusade between this and the Fire one has continuously been more intriguing. I love Thorion. Please make a model of her. No matter what her apotheosis looks like, it's going to be awesome. And this was a fun one because it splits up in a way that it makes sense. Everything till this point makes perfect sense. Why this settlement was right there, why they were ready with supplies, why they were so welcoming. The fact that they, have scouted other areas to find great places for cities. Thorion's led right there. They clean the place of all the Chaos folks there. It's all making so much sense. And that's the most fun thing, is when stories have a twist or an epic conclusion, and it made sense the entire way. There was no massive leaps in logic. This is one of those. As I said before, I just don't think there's enough depictions of what it's like on the receiving end of a Hedonites of Slaanesh attack, because, of course, there's always the memes about everything's for pleasure and, self-gratification, and people take that in really weird ways. But, if you're on the receiving end, there's no pleasure involved there, so what are you actually seeing people do to themselves and others? It's just kind of a wacky thing. It never gets explored very much for a lot of reasons, and so seeing that depicted as it's a very disorienting thing. Disorientation is not the word I would normally think of, but it's a powerful tool on the battlefield for sure, especially if you're a smaller force like the Hedonites were in this one, and your objective isn't to win militarily, it's just, seize the objective, which in this case was King's blood, the water. I'd love to know your thoughts about that down below. Tell me, and we'll jump into the conclusion of the Ghyran side. It's a very interesting story, I promise, all the way back at Nathweight's Crossing in tomorrow's video. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I will catch you next time, friends. Happy wargaming.